Hey, friends. What a week. We were just a few weeks ago talking almost exclusively about global health pandemic. And of course, over the last few days, into that conversation has emerged another conversation that, of course, started with the killing of George Floyd up in Minneapolis and protests over his death and protests that have spread, focusing on police brutality and racial justice in general. I think there are lots of voices that are more important to listen to than mine talking about this, but there was something that came to mind for me that I would like to share. Some of you might have read the book Toxic Charity by Robert Lupton. It's kind of become a book of best practices for how to do work of, well, of course, charity. There's a story in there that really spoke to me and was really formative for how I understand a lot of social upheaval and a lot of conversations that we have as a society. He talks about back in 1996, the Olympics were being hosted in Atlanta, and there was a big group of activists who decided that that would be the perfect opportunity to really try to focus on some of the problems that the city of Atlanta was having. And specifically, that the area that Olympic Village was going to be located in had a lot of social issues there. So, to be very honest, it would seem that partly for optics, but I believe that many of them were motivated altruistically as well. That they got together and they fundraised hundreds of millions of dollars to put into development of what had become a very underserved community. And the effort began well enough. Of course, lots of task forces and lots of planning went into it, and they ended up completely redoing a whole bunch of infrastructure. They put in brand new community centers and healthcare facilities, in all manner of brick and mortar spaces. And then they finished, and to their dismay, not much changed in the neighborhood. And in fact, a lot of the brick and mortar spaces that they had created went unused. I remember hearing a story, I think that they had built a really, really nice athletic complex, and the kids still just went and played outside. People were, well, why is that? Well, this is where we play basketball. And what became very clear as they started digging into this, and Lupton focuses a lot on it, is that the organizers had talked to themselves. They had talked to experts. They had talked to academics. They had talked to developers. But they had never gotten much input at all, let alone buy-in from the people that were actually in the neighborhood they were focusing on. And so the things they built were nice. They certainly looked nice on paper, and they looked nice when you drove by them on the street. But in terms of the needs that the community had, the neighbors all knew. So we need social workers. We need grocery stores that have affordable food. They listed a whole bunch of things after the project was completely over and said, if you had asked us ahead of time, we would have told you these are the things we needed. It's sometimes awkward to talk about race bluntly, but I think it's very important to say it up front. It was an awful lot of white people who were going into a predominantly African American neighborhood and assuming they knew what was needed. And they didn't. It is vital that if work for the improvement of our culture, for our societies, is to be done, that we need to listen to the people who are most affected and trust that what they're telling us is true. There's a philosophy I hold dearly, which is that if someone tells you that you are hurting them, you don't have the right to tell them that you're not. And I think as we watch protests and riots and all sorts of conversations happening on social media and person to person, It's important that we focus our attention on the right voices, especially us as the church. Our obligation is to love one another, to seek justice. And in the places where there's hurt and pain, it's the people who are experiencing the hurt and pain who should be leading those conversations. I don't know all of the right policy actions for how to prevent police brutality. I certainly believe that there are a lot of things that we can do to improve our relationships with police forces across the country. And I believe the issue of racial justice is something that's been at the heart of how our country was founded. It is in a conversation we will never do away with, so long as there are people of different skin colors in our country. It is important work. I believe it is holy work. And so I will not try to offer my thoughts or prescribe the solutions, but I will say that I hope that we as a community of faith at St. Barnabas, as a denomination and as a presbytery, and then us as individual people of faith in our own private lives, I hope that we will pay attention to the people who are speaking who we might not have listened to before. There are people who have been doing this work of improving our society in terms of racial justice for decades. People whose expertise is profound, and people whose experiences of oppression and marginalization inform the work they're doing. There is a place, a very important place, for Christian witness. There's a very important place for partnership across races. But I do want us to hold that in our mind, while also holding in our mind that our voices and our opinions might not be the most important ones. And in a lot of cases, that takes some getting used to. I offer this with the hope that the work in the city of Dallas and in the city of Richardson will be meaningful. I hope and pray that protests will remain peaceful, that there will not be injury or death, and that we can make genuine progress through what is certainly an uncertain time. I look forward to talking with you all more. Pray that you are well. Take good care.